Okay, we're live. Yay!
Yay!
So, first, I want to thank you for coming on my live stream. It's really, um, I'm really excited to have you here because, like I said before, your TikTok was the one that I saw when I was kind of planning my podcast out. And the first episode, since it was the first ever, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was so nervous. And then I saw your TikTok and I was like, you know what? This is a really good topic to start on because I have experience with this. And so I really want to thank the universe and you for putting that TikTok onto my For You page.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciated that. Like when I saw you tagged me and like gave me the credit, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this was before she started her show. Like that is so cool.
Yeah,
And like at the time when
yeah,
I made my episode, there weren't too many people on YouTube that were talking about it. It was like more so like a TikTok drama, in
yeah.
my opinion. And I'm like, there's like only maybe a handful of videos that were on YouTube at the time. So then when I saw that you made a video about it too, I'm like, okay, like we've got a girlie, she's talking about this as well.
Yeah,
So I thought that was cool.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I had only ever seen, like you said, people talking about it on TikTok. So I tried to talk about it on TikTok, but my TikTok about it did not get a bunch of attention.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of thinking, like, maybe this isn't like the best topic to start my podcast on because it didn't get a lot of attention on TikTok where it's really popular. I can't expect it to then get a lot of attention on YouTube because YouTube and TikTok are like two different worlds.
Mhm.
But it did end up getting quite a few views on YouTube, which was really unexpected. And
Yeah, same for
a lot of
mine. I
people
was like,
relate.
whoa.
Yep. So I did want to ask, even though this is mostly unscripted, I did want to ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
Um, my first question is, how did you first come across Mayo Mom?
TikTok. I saw I forget what's her name. We literally did a whole video about it and I forget the girl's name. The one who makes the videos. Do you remember her name?
Sean?
Sean. Yes.
Yeah.
I saw her account and all of the like conversations and think pieces that people were making about it. And that's how I found out about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I found out about it through a stitch that someone had done where they were stitching Sean's videos and the creator was like, "Oh, this mom sucks. Like she's so narcissistic, she's so this and that." And I was like, "This is really interesting." So I went over to the original video, watched the original video, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is interesting."
Yeah.
It's just so like I guess this is a follow-up question, but what was your first impression of Mayo Mom? Because I know I had a few first impressions, but I want to know what your first impression was.
My first impression was it's just giving delusional. And my that was honestly my first thought. I was like, oh my God, like this lady seems to be a bit delulu. Um, as they say in RuPaul's Drag Race, drag delusion. Like, what is going on here? Like, this food does not look bad, and I feel like she's just saying, critical comments just to say it. And I was like, this hit home. Honestly, it was a little bit triggering at
Hmm.
first. It was a bit triggering, a bit off-putting, but those are like my first thoughts. But when I did my
Yeah.
video about it, I was like, I don't want to necessarily bash her at the same time because this is, someone's mother. So I felt kind of conflicted about making the episode to begin with once I saw it. But then I'm like, well, maybe if I just come from like a critical standpoint and kind of just give my opinions just like off of her behavior and only what we've just been shown and not be like she sucks like a lot of people have been saying, like you'll never
Hmm.
catch me being like she's horrible. I'll just be like, questionable behavior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I first came across her, to be honest, like even though we both have grandmother wounds, which is something that we were talking about in the comments of your podcast episode, she kind of reminded me of my mom. And I think I talked about this in the episode that I made, but a lot of the times, like these behaviors are passed down from generation to generation. And so throughout my episode, I was kind of trying to put myself in my mom's shoes because I felt like if I put myself in my mom's shoes, I would be able to better understand Mayo Mom, which, by the way, did you know her name is Karen?
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. I heard that in when I was doing my updates episode about her. I heard the husband be like Karen, like just, whatever. I think they were having an argument and he called her Karen and I was like that's really interesting.
Oh my
Um
god.
yeah, but that's kind of the approach that I came at my episode with, like what if I put myself in my mom's shoes and tried to understand, like maybe something in Karen's upbringing was like made her this way. Like maybe her mom was also very critical and so she felt like she also had to be critical of her daughter. And that was kind of my first impression, was like this reminds me of my mom. And then one time, like a few weeks after I made the episode, my mom was wearing glasses and I was like, she looks so much like Mayo Mom. I was like, wait, where am I
I'm
right
having
now?
flashbacks right now. Please cut it out. No,
Yeah.
yeah. Like that is something that I feel like a lot of like our generation, like millennials and Gen Zers kind of have to do is constantly give our grandparents and our parents and like ancestors grace in the way that you mentioned of being like, well, let me put myself in their shoes. But then sometimes, like, when I'm really feeling petty, I'm like, but they don't. They don't take
Hmm.
moms like Mail Mom don't take the time to be like, well, let me, and then it just kind of feels like a bit unfair at the same time that we have to always do all of this work, dealing with this generational trauma of criticism and narcissism that's passed down. And they get to just be like, la di da di da. But we have to like every week in therapy put the work in to undo all of this that's been pushed onto us. And I'm like, that is so not fair. And it just makes me think about Sean because it's like, girl, you
Hmm.
got to be this cycle breaker in your family too. And I'm hoping that she's doing the healing work. And like I mentioned in my episode, not letting the Mayo Mom's like critiques get to her because I know how much work you have to do internally to be like she's just projecting, she's like you said she's probably just like this because her mom was like this, and it's like it feels so unfair though that we have to be so
Yep.
considerate when they don't ever try.
Yep. Yep, exactly. We have a viewer. Hi, Kath. Let me
Hi.
put her comment on screen. How do I do that? I don't know. Oh, show. There we go. Hi. Now you can see the comment on screen.
Hello. Yeah, I could see it. Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, it's exactly as you were mentioning. Is Oh, you're okay, Kath. It's okay. She says, "Sorry, I'm late." You're okay. But yeah, it's like you were mentioning. Sometimes like I'll be watching my mom doing things. Like I was just barely talking about this to my friends last night, where I'm seeing my mom kind of do some things, and I'm like, I really wish I could talk to her about it because a lot of the times the older generations, when we mention therapy to them, they're like, "Pfft, therapy, come on, like I'm not crazy. I don't need a therapist." Like, and it's like, well, it's not that we're telling you that you're crazy. It's just that maybe it would be beneficial for you to talk about your childhood with someone who you feel safe with, and you can express those emotions and recognize that some of the things that you are maybe saying or doing are not beneficial for anyone. You know,
Right.
it's And so I was telling my friends, like, I wish there was a way that I could approach my parents and tell them, like, can we have a serious conversation about some of these behaviors? And mm, but then at the same time, it's like you said, like, I don't want to be a therapist for my family. Like, I don't want to put that burden on myself and be like a free therapist for them
Yeah.
when chances are they're not going to take me seriously. So I really just have to work on myself and focus on myself and recognize that the behaviors that they're doing, maybe they don't mean to hurt me, but they are hurtful, and that's all really I can do at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I've been like really working on in therapy like recently is I'm like, okay, I've come to the realization that some of these people in my family are not going to change. And I know that like for the longest time you can just be like, well, maybe they will, maybe they will. But nobody talks about the part where you have to be like, but maybe they won't.
Hmm.
Maybe they won't. And then you have to then focus your healing journey on, like you said, yourself and being like, okay, I can only control how I react when they say these crazy things. And you have to, like you said, just focus on you and, the impact of their words. Like, ugh, it's just so complicated. It really is. And
Yep.
it's not fair. And it's like one thing that confuses me about like with my specific journey with like you're talking about, the grandmother wounds is like my grandma is pro therapy, which is like rare, like we said, because most of them
Hmm.
are like, no, nothing's wrong. But my entire family has a history of like, mental illness issues. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But she realized early on because, my grandma was like used to be, abused by my grandfather. So of course, then my mom, uncles, all have some trauma, right? That they need to work out in therapy. So she put them in therapy early because of what their environment was like. So it's like you would think that it's rare to see a grandma who's like, okay, I'm pro therapy, but then didn't put herself in therapy. It's like, girl, the call is coming from inside the house. Why'd you put everybody but you in therapy? Like you were the main one that needed it. So that's like
Yep.
really confusing to me too.
Yeah. This actually reminds me of a TV show that I was watching just a few weeks ago, where the show's called Psych, and it's
Oh
about
yeah.
this character named Sean Spencer who pretends to be a psychic. Um, but during one of the season finales, his mom comes to visit him, and it's like the first time that we as the audience see her on screen. And she's a therapist. And I would always like watch this show kind of like in the background. I would never pay attention to it. But this time around, I was paying more attention to it. And I was seeing like some of the things that his mom was saying. It's like you would never expect a therapist to say that. And then that got me thinking, like, how many more therapists are out there that are kind of neglecting their families and doing things that are just not appropriate, um, in terms of like, well, you're a therapist, you should know better kind of thing, and they're doing the exact opposite in their home life. And it's
Yeah.
it's
A
like
lot of
what you
them have
said,
that
it's like,
double life.
yeah, yep,
It's giving Hannah
exactly.
Montana. Like my grandma is literally the same way. She's the head of the nursing ministry at our church. Well, I don't go anymore because I'm obviously no contact with her. But
Hmm.
yeah, she like when I was young, it used to just be so almost scary to me how she was literally able to give Hannah Montana one moment you're Hannah, one moment you're Miley.
Hmm.
Because when you're at home, sweetie, it's literally giving hell. But then when you're at church, everyone's like, oh, your grandmother is so sweet. So
Hmm.
that does align with what you said about like people like that who are in service of others. for their job or for their hobbies like church and etc. religious reasons, but then when they get home, it's literally like demon from hell and you're like, what's going on? How are they able to
Yep.
switch up like that?
Yeah. My grandmother is the same way as your grandma. Like, she will go out to the store and she'll be saying hi to everyone and she'll stop people and she'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like you're so pretty. Oh wow, your kids, they're so cute." And then at home, it's a totally different story. She's talking to her kids like, "Oh, you guys just don't love me. Like I'm just a burden to you guys." And my aunts and uncles and my mom have all said like, we don't know where this is coming from. Like, we're sending her money, we're taking care of her, we take her to doctor's appointments. Like, we obviously are showing her that we don't hate her, but she's always telling, like, she's calling up on her phone, beep boop, beep boop, like, guess what? My children hate me. And it's like, no, we don't actually. I don't know what, like,
It's like, where do they pull this stuff out of? Like, what magic
right?
hat are you pulling these tricks out of? These assumptions and delusions? Like, I will never understand how they can literally come up with something and be like, this is how this person feels about me. Cause like my grandma is convinced, like, from when I was young that I've hated her guts. And I'm like, girl, I never actually hated you per se, but like you've also always been mean. So question mark?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's just so confusing.
Yeah. We got a comment from Kath. She says, communication is key to understanding one another. Your parents love you, that's what counts. I constantly make mistakes with my daughter. She always forgives me. You can be the change in the family.
Yes.
Yep.
And a lot of times that's what's happening right now with I'm seeing, like I said, with millennials, Gen Zers, they're choosing to be the change in their family. And being that change is not easy, but somebody's got to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, and even though my parents are very anti-therapy, I've noticed that as I've been healing myself, I've been kind of able to heal my parents by association. Like
Mhm.
sometimes I'll do something that I recognize, oh, this is a negative behavior. And so then I'll tell them, oh, like I did something the other day and I didn't like how I reacted, and this is why. And so they've started kind of putting more thought into their actions. And they've really, like before, they were a mess. If I were to say, like, I'm sorry, but it's true.
Like, no shade, no
Um,
tea. These are just
yeah.
facts.
Yeah, but nowadays they're less of a mess. Still a little bit of a mess, but less so.
Yeah, I think that's like ultimately the outcome that we kind of are all going through. Like, if you are the one that's the change in your family, and then that in turn positively affects everyone else, it's not like you're gonna be, the magical healer, but any ounce of like introspection that you can give them to make them be like, wait, let me actually think about my actions is a win. It's a
Mhm.
win for me because it's the same thing with like my parents, and now they're like way more open to constructive criticism, like as parents. No longer are the days of being, worried to be like, oh, this hurt my feelings, like, and then being like, oh, I guess I'm the worst parent ever. Like, we don't get those responses anymore. They're actually open, being like, oh, I apologize. I understand why you felt that way. And then we work towards like, how can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? So, yeah, I totally feel you with that. Like, I've
Mhm.
made progress like with my parents too in that way. And like my boyfriend, he's opened up a lot more and he's able to, like the comment said, communicate, express his feelings in a way that he just wasn't a lot didn't feel safe to do so as a child. But now that like I'm going through therapy and like you said with our healing journey, like it feels nice to be able to take what we're learning and help those that we care about.
Mhm. Yeah. And one of the conversations that I've been having with my parents as of recent is the topic of me having babies and them having grandkids. And it's just like, I go through waves of like, I don't want children. Wait, no, maybe I do. Wait, no. And so I'm in one of those phases where I'm like, maybe I do want kids. So I've started asking them questions like, what do you want your grandparent name to be, or how do you think I'm going to raise my children? And then I've started thinking like, well, how will I raise my kids? And that's actually the conversation that I was having with my friends last night is like, I think if I have kids and I raise them with my parents kind of thing, like with my parents watching me raise my kids, that will also be healing to my parents. Because it's like, I don't know if you've come across Laura Love on TikTok, but she has
Mm-mm.
two little kids, two little boys, and they're called Jonah and Carter. And she's been doing a lot of like Montessori and gentle parenting. But she says, like, one of the things that has helped her heal her inner child is how she's raising her kids and how like her parents used to be really abusive and she has like this fear of a bunch of things that her parents like instilled in her. Like she'll have a fear of making a mess and then she'll fear cleaning up because her parents like scared her into doing those things. But now that she has kids, she's kind of working through that. Obviously, she's trying her hardest to not project that onto her kids, but she's instead turning that around and being like, okay, you made a mess. It's okay. You just have to clean it, right? And I was thinking like I think if my parents get to see how I raise my kids, cuz that's something that I want to do if I have kids, I want to raise them like not with yelling, but with words. I don't want to
Yeah.
scare them into cleaning up. I don't want to like scare them into doing anything. And yeah, I really think like it's like this uh community healing, like where my parents are seeing, oh, our daughter, like she's treating her kids differently than how we raised her. Maybe we do have some issues. Maybe we do need to look further into ourselves. And I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll have to see if that helps or not. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that does sound like really healing, like you said, for that specific creator because I've been thinking about that as well. Like I'm turning 29 in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, I definitely know that I do want to become a parent, but it's just a matter of like when at this point now, because I'm like just now getting started with like content creation and things like that. So it's like, ugh, not enough people talk about like how hard that decision is for people with uteruses, like
Hmm.
figuring out when the timeline of it all. Um, but yeah, like I definitely have considered like how do I want to navigate with like gentle parenting and things like that. And I definitely want my experience to kind of be similar to that creators where it's healing, not only for me, but it's good for my parents too. And it definitely like after, we talk about things like Mayo Mom and we discuss the grandmother wounds has like made me even more clear on who I don't want around my children in that
Hmm.
way. So like that's definitely something that's like added to my thought process because I'm like, for example, my grandma, I just already know that like that is just not someone that I'm gonna want consistently around because I've seen the way that she's like acted with both of my uncles and my mom. Like having somebody around like that isn't even perceptive, like open to even taking in the way that you're parenting and learning something from it, all they do is just judge it. That's not it for me. Like she's definitely not gonna be around in my journey for that because it's like, girl, I don't have time for you to be like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Like, hmm. So that's
Hmm.
like interesting that you bring that up because I've been thinking about that too. And I'm like, I definitely don't want her in my ear, like making me
Yeah.
second guess everything like I literally did growing up. Like that's just what you need during that time of your life where you're already questioning everything you ever do. Don't want that.
Yeah. Yep. Kath says, you're a grown up and they have to get used to that. And then she adds a different comment. She says, you have tons of years ahead to decide you will be wonderful parents. Thank you. I
Oh,
do everything the opposite of my mom did with me. 29 is young. I had my girl at 31. My friend's daughter, 41, just had two.
Oh, yes. See, I'm, like, always so worried about people being, like, what's the word? Geriatric
Mhm.
pregnancy. Like, I don't wanna be too old, but, like, it's
Yeah.
fine. The older I get, I'm like, as long as you have a loving household, does it really matter? Like, people with
Mhm.
older parents, like, if anything, I feel like they're the ones that are better off than the ones with
Yeah.
young parents, because 'cause they're the ones that are can be a little, more reckless. When you're older and you're seasoned, you know what's going on.
Yeah. It's kinda like, how because Kath and I were having a conversation when I uploaded an episode about relationships, and I've been single for 23 years, like, my whole life, no relationships, and we were talking about
Same with my
how the
sister.
yeah, how we were talking about how the older you are, the more you get to know yourself and the more you get to know what you do want to do, what you don't want to do, what you will accept, what you won't accept. And that's the same thing with older parents. Like as we grow older and we're watching more people like Mayo Mom, like exactly like you said, we're seeing, oh, this is exactly what I personally don't want to do, and this is the kind of energy that I don't want my kids to be around, so I'm not going to allow any of this BS into my child's life. And I feel like when you're younger, it's harder to set those boundaries because you don't have that much experience setting those boundaries. So I just imagine like me at 21, I probably would have allowed my parents to have more say in how my kids were raised if I had had kids at 21 versus me now at 23. I'm thinking, yeah, I definitely want to be setting boundaries. Like, you cannot feed my kids Coke, like I'm not going to allow you to give my kids Pepsi when they're 2 years old. Like, you cannot do that. Versus
Yeah,
at
that's crazy
21,
work.
I would have been like, yeah, okay, maybe like give them a sip of Pepsi. It's fine.
Yeah, and you're like, "Well, maybe they know what's best." But when
Yeah.
you're like your point, when you're older, you're more sure of what you know, and you're like, "No, I think I do know what's good for me and something that literally came out of me."
Mhm.
Like, I understand I came out of you, but we're gonna have to, like you said, have those boundaries. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's something that I'm, like, totally getting better at, with as I'm older, and I'm, like, so prepared to, like, be ride or die about my boundaries when it comes to, like, anything I do going forward, and that's including future children, because that's just something that I wish that my mom was just a little bit better at. Like, love you, mom. Like I always say, kisses, no shade, no tea. But we wish that she could have, advocated a little bit more for us. And that way, like you said, with, simple things. Hey, I don't like when you say that to my children, mom. Telling my grandma to cut it out, a lot more, or just at any point would have been nice.
Mhm.
And she didn't. So I'm like, okay, I got to do what I got to do for me now, which is no contact. But I definitely don't want my children to feel that way. So all of these things, like in combination, make me think about those decisions that I want to make with those boundaries that I'm gonna set because that's not fun. That's not fun to like
Mhm.
be in that situation where you feel like someone could be speaking up for you and they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm thinking about, like as far as kids, is in at least in my family and in my community, it's so normalized to make fun of little kids' weight. Like, I
Yeah.
remember my cousin when we were babysitting her son, like, my cousin would be like, "Oh, yeah, he's so fat," and he's, like, the skinniest kid ever. Um, but that's one of the things where I'm thinking, like, at 21, if my mom called my child, like, chunky, I would have been like, "Yeah, no, he's so chunky, like, so cute." But at 23, I'm thinking, but how did that affect me when I was growing up and I was being called chunky? Like, maybe I don't want my parents to call my babies chunky? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's that learning experience. And Kath says like it's normal nowadays to be a bit older to have kids. 23 and 29 is still young. Good choice on soda or pop.
I
Yeah,
love that debate, soda versus pop. What do you usually do? Say soda or pop?
soda. Yeah.
See, I feel like Michiganders say soda, but No, they say pop. Most Michiganders say pop, but my dad is like from New Jersey, so he says
Mm,
soda. So I feel like that's
yeah.
always made me like an oddball.
Yeah. I am living in Utah and there's a lot of soda shops just instead of
Dude, I
Starbucks,
was
they
watching
are
a
soda shops.
podcast recently about the Utah soda pop lore. Lily, please tell me, have you visited a soda pop store?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, what is the experience like? Like, why this is has recently been a new fascination for me in the last 2 weeks.
It's very strange because their menu will be like dirty root beer, and
Wait,
I come from
so
a
they get
family
spicy with the
that like
names?
yeah.
Oh my
I come from a family
god.
though that like doesn't like we moved here to Utah. Like we came from California and we moved to Utah and the only kind of soda that we'll have is like one flavor. But here in Utah, you're gonna see them mixing Sprite, root beer, Coke, like all sorts of things, plus then adding sweetened condensed milk, like whipped cream, ice into it, and I was just like looking at the menu, and I was like, "What is this?"
I want to throw up right now. The milk. I
And the
hate
cups are
mixing
this
drinks.
big.
Dude, and that's what the podcast because it's the podcast is called Upstairs Neighbors. I don't know if you've heard of it. With Maya and Dom is one of my favorite shows. They were talking about that because she was saying that she like went to Utah. I can't remember if she grew up there or not. And she was like, you get, like you said, a big like amount for a little price. Like they're
Mhm.
relatively cheap. I don't know if that still is stands in 2025 where they're like relatively cheap. Cause like has that changed with the economy or
Oh, I don't know. I haven't been recently.
okay.
The last time I was in one was, I think, last year. But I didn't get one of those fancy mixes. I got
You got
just
a
like a
regular.
Sprite with fruit and
Okay.
ice, and that
Because
was
you have
good.
a
That
good
was
head on
really
your
good.
shoulders. You're not
Yeah.
you're not crazy. Because what do
Yeah.
you mean mixing? Like, I can't stand no shade, no tea to people who love to do this. But if you're one of those people that walks up to a like soda machine and goes pss, 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 down the whole thing, I can't trust you. I low key don't know if we could be friends because that's insane. That doesn't taste good. And then
Yeah.
adding in all these add-ins with the freaking condensed milk literally is going to make your stomach curdle like are you well? It's giving bionic stomach because I couldn't handle
Right.
that. Oh my
Yeah.
god. No, that is so crazy to me. Like I'm so glad you mentioned that and I can like be boots on the ground doing like the research with someone who literally has been to one before. I love that. I can't wait to tell my boyfriend.
S- Sometimes the lines are really crazy because most of the soda shops are like drive-through,
Okay.
and and so the lines like you'll just see a line of cars, and it's like Chick-fil-A, how
So it's
the
almost like
line.
Starbucks where they're like, I need my drink.
Yeah.
Like the people are like, is that the culture? Like they're like, if
Hmm.
you usually go to one, like you're like a daily drink girly. Okay.
Yep.
Because I
If you
assumed that
go
they
to
would go hard
like
about it.
Yeah. If you go to like a convenience store or just like a regular store, you'll see at least three employees with a swig. That's what one of the shops is called, a swig or Sodalicious cup. And they'll just be throughout the day. Like,
On the
no
clock?
water, just soda.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's giving diabetes. That's insane. Oh my
Well, and
god.
it's funny because I talked about soda shops in my last episode about overconsumption.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of, water talk,
Yes.
where they do like mixing, they call it water, but it's Kool-Aid.
I'm a
And so I
victim.
was
My Stanley? Yeah. She's she's got a packet of the nerds.
yeah.
Cherry packet is filled with that water right now. It's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are good, but like my issue was like, it's not water, it's Kool-Aid. What are
Oh
you
my
talking about?
god. So you're on that side. No, I
Yeah.
totally get it. It's a debate.
Yeah. No,
Because
but I
I
was
was like,
saying
it's
like
water.
yeah. I was talking about soda shops in that episode, and I was saying like someone, because you know the UK versus US debates. Someone from the UK was like, "Well, you Americans drink 40 ounces of soda daily," and someone from the US was like, "Actually, it's 20 ounces of soda and 20 ounces of ice," because they fill in every soda shop they fill the cups with ice like all the way to the top, and then it's soda. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, but it's still like 20 ounces of soda daily. Like, I don't know if I want to be drinking. I don't know if that's any better, you know?
Right. No, that is an extremely valid point. I'm so glad you saw that debate though, because that is interesting. Like I
Yep.
love thinking about stuff like that. Um, yeah. Because I already thought that like in Michigan they kind of go crazy with the ice, but the Utah of it all, that's insane. Don't fill my cup up to the brim. Okay. We need about a quarter ice and then I'll be good. But no, that makes me so curious, man. Like I want to visit a shop so badly. I might just like look up a menu randomly, find a random shop and look at the menu because I want to see this from with my own eyes.
Yeah, they're very interesting. Some of those are
Wow.
good. Like the last one I had was the Sprite with the fruit. I was like, "Oh, I can stand behind this. Like this is good." But other ones, I'm like, "Who came up with that idea?"
No, for real. Like even with like simple stuff like root beer floats, like I don't want that. I'm not a root beer like type of girly. I don't want to mix anything. If it's not a Shirley Temple, I ain't drinking any other mixed type of beverage, and that's it.
The most I'll do at like one of those soda fountains is I'll mix a root beer and cherry coke.
Okay, valid.
That's really good. But like, yeah, sometimes I'll see people walking. One time my brother did this just like to try it out, but he was like, and he
Yeah,
was like, it tastes not disgusting, but not good.
that's what I'm
Like,
saying. If you're one of those people that's like dies about it being good, like you're lying. You're lying to yourself and you're lying
mhm.
to the Americans because there's no way you're telling me that's actually genuinely good. That's sick.
Yeah. Um, Kat says, because we were talking about parents beforehand, she says, you have to tell your parents what you expect from them when you have a child. You set the rules and they have to listen. We say pop in Canada.
Okay, period.
Yeah.
That does make sense because Michigan and Canada are like cousins.
hmm And then she says, my daughter didn't eat candy till 3 and pop at 5. They don't ask for what they don't know exists.
True.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was actually seeing a TikTok of a Mexican doctor who was saying, like, the reason why Mexican kids struggle so much with obesity and diabetes and whatnot is because their parents feed them sweets at such an early age that they almost get addicted to it and that's all they can eat. And so I was telling my parents about this and they were like, "Oh, but it doesn't hurt. Like it's just a little candy. It doesn't hurt. It's just a little sip of soda, it's fine." And I was thinking like maybe it's not fine, you know? Maybe I don't want to. Maybe I'll do a mini experiment with my kids and I'll be like, "No, absolutely no sugar, nothing until 5." And then I'll see, how is their health different from mine? And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it is a lie or maybe it's a true thing and I just saved my child from being bullied at school, you know?
No,
Like,
for real. Like that's so valid. I do want that for my future kids. Like definitely cuz sugar addiction is real. I remember
mhm,
I saw this documentary about some country. I forget what country it was where like everyone was intensely addicted to sugar in this one specific village and it was like they were tweaking over it and it's like people do not realize how intense that can get. So
mhm.
I do think that's valid, like waiting until they're a little bit older I think is the best, but obviously like whoever's listening do what you want to do for you and yours, but our opinion
Yeah,
waiting seems a little bit more ideal.
yeah. Yeah, Kath says the red and blue dye is the worst and the chemicals. Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are getting scary. The bans that are happening, I'm like, why hasn't this been a thing? It's like crazy how much goes on in the US that is like okay here, that's not okay in so many other countries. And it's like, why us? Why our food?
Mhm.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Which speaking of food, did you think that any of the Mayo Mom's cooking that she did looked appetizing? Okay.
No. Listen, I'm Mexican. I can't be seeing food like that. If you pull up to my house with a plate of what was it? Mayo chicken?
Literal mayo
I'm gonna
chicken.
turn you back around. You have to go home. I'm sorry.
No, for real. I think all Mexicans and black people are on the same accord when it comes to this opinion. We don't want
Yeah.
to see that. That's crazy, bro. And then when she made the chili, oh my god, I don't know if you saw that one. Like,
Yeah.
oh, and then her with that little book that she reads from her recipes pisses me off so much. I want to cry. Like, throw that book away, throw that book away, throw that book away. And I never want to see it again. Don't ever cook another recipe from that book. Oh,
Right.
that's horrid. When people in the
Yep.
comments said that the chicken was still clucking, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm about to pass away. I'm literally about to evaporate like a sin because it took me out." I'm like, how does her husband do it?
Right.
He has to be the one to push through and brave and eat the food every time. And that makes me feel bad for him.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man, I just remember like seeing seeing her Sean like move the chicken and like lift it up or cut into it or whatever. I gasped. I was like, "That's pink."
It's like the oil around it just even looked
Mhm.
gross. I was like, "Oh my god." Like we could stand like maybe a cooking class or two. I think maybe
Mhm.
would be the best direction for her to go in. I haven't been on her account in a while, so I don't know if she's improved or not. But
Probably not.
yeah.
Yeah, Kath says, "Talk about arrogance." If and here's the thing where I can say my mom is nothing like Mayo Mom in this regard is that she allows me to cook. Like I'll be like, "Mom, I'm gonna cook today," and she'll be like, "All right," and she'll sit on the couch, hands behind her head, legs resting. Whereas with Mayo Mom, it's like, "You want to cook? Okay, fine." Like I just that's how I
Mm.
imagine like her speaking to Sean, like, "Oh, you're gonna cook dinner today? All right." Like I had something planned, but I guess, like very passive aggressive.
Yeah, it's almost like she acts like the energy that I got from my research was that she wants to be the lady of the house in that sense.
Mhm.
Like it seems like very conservative, like traditional, where it's like you
Yep.
don't outdo the matriarch or whatever the word is. Like I'm the
That's the vibe that
highest.
I got.
Yeah. Like, oh, that makes me literally sick to my stomach when people act like that. Like, you don't want your daughter to learn and grow and to be able to have,
Mhm.
skills because then in that moment, then when it's time for her to grow and become a mom and do her own thing, then she's going to be like, "Well, you don't know how to do anything." And then it would be like, "Well, no thanks to you because you didn't even want to ever let me try." That was kind of an
Mhm.
issue that I had with my mom for a little bit. She
Me
was
too.
kind of
I was
giving
just
me
about
a
to talk about
mom.
that.
Yeah, where she was like but I think it was more so like an anxiety control thing. But then once
Mhm.
I was like, "Girl, you gotta let me try so I can know what I'm doing when I have my own apartment." And even then, when I moved out, I still didn't really know what I was doing, and I had a lot of, like, growth that I had to figure out on my own, and I'm like, "Darn, if only she would've, like, let up a little bit more and let me
Yep.
figure out and try." So, I relate. Like, if
Yeah. my mom, like, she did try to teach me, but she would always, like, be like, "Okay, you do this and you do this. No, just let me do it myself." Like, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll never learn," until very recently where I was like, "I'm sitting you down and I'm cooking."
Yeah, and then and now they look at it as, "Okay, I can relax," because that's the same
Yeah.
way that my mom is, and now, like, that I live separate from her, I can, like, fully just cook. Because then sometimes she'll be like, "Oh, you can make it over here." No, I'm gonna make the food over at my house, and then I'll bring it to you. Because I don't wanna hear I don't want her instinctual hovering to start. Like, no,
Yep.
let me just do it, and then you can try it. Like, so
Yep.
yeah, you definitely have to create those boundaries and be like, "Listen, mom, it's time for me to try this." But I don't think that, like, it doesn't seem like the energy that our moms were giving were Mayo mom's energy. It was more so
Mhm.
like, I'm worried. I'm kind of a helicopter mom, where Mayo mom is giving like low key op,
Yeah.
low key op.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, Kath says her daughter's food looked amazing. And yes, it did.
Yes.
And that's the thing also that we both talked about in our episodes is that, we as the viewers, we can say it looked amazing, but we don't actually taste the food. But then when you compare it like visual wise to what Mayo Mom's doing, uh, do we even
Yeah.
need to taste it at this point?
No, bombastic side eye. Like, for real. I think it's just so, like, her food looks so good that you just know it tastes good. I'm not even gonna question that. Like you said, t- technically we haven't tasted it, but it's
Mhm.
like in my spirit, I know it hits.
Yep.
I know it hits. Shout out to Sean, man. Like, she
Mhm.
seems really cool, and she could throw it out even better than I can. So I'm never gonna be one to hate.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that got me thinking, like, where, because obviously we both tried to kind of dissect this behavior coming from Mayo Mom, but now I'm wondering, like, does Mayo Mom truly believe that her food is delicious and Sean's food is disgusting? Or is there some part of her that knows, yeah, my food sucks and my daughter is a better cook than me? Like, where do you stand on that?
See, that's hard because I think it reminds me so much of my grandma in that way, where you do question their sanity. You question their sanity, because that is a good point. I don't fully feel confident in answering on what side she lays on, because when it comes to people like that and their mind is like so mentally gone, and it's like, girl, you're so unwell. You are so self-centered, so narcissistic, that I can't even begin to think, what side are you on?
Mhm.
Like, that is a mystery. I don't know. I confidently can't say an answer, because a part of me does feel like maybe she is genuinely, like I said, delusional, and thinks, no, this hits because that's her acquired taste palette, if that's the right term. And
Mhm.
she's like, no, I genuinely enjoy this food, and I love it. But then at the same time, is she like, no, I'm fully aware that this sucks? I don't know. That's a good look. What is your opinion? What is your thought? Because I don't know.
I guess I just remember, like, how she reacted when the Burger King patty was put in front of her.
Yep.
Like, when Sean put the Burger King patty in front of her, and that got me thinking, I think she knows her food sucks. Like, I think she knows that she's not the best cook and that her daughter is a better cook than her, but she's so unwilling to say that she'll talk shit about her own favorite burger patty.
Yeah, and I wish that she would have done that video differently, because she burnt the bun.
Yeah.
Sean burnt the freaking bun, and I'm like, Sean, no. Let's run it back. Let's run it
Yeah.
back with a proper unburnt bun, and then we'll see. But
Mhm.
either way, I think that that experiment, regardless of the burnt bun, did give us a lot of insight. That, yeah, now that you laid out like that, I am leaning towards, like, maybe she is aware. She does though.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Kath says, and this is, I feel like this is normal for parents. She says, your parents are going to appreciate the help. I love when my daughter cooks.
Yeah,
Like,
normal
I
parents.
personally have not met a parent that isn't proud of their parents cooking. Like, my cousin, she bakes, and her mom and dad are so like, oh my gosh, did you see? Like, your cousin, she's baking, she's selling her cakes. Like, they're so proud of her. My mom, she'll be like, yeah, you take over the kitchen today. I'm not doing an ounce of work. Like you're the one that's going to be in the kitchen cooking. I'm going to be resting, you know? And like you said, like your mom will tell you like, yeah, you cook this and bring it over here or cook over here. And and so it's very interesting how Mayo Mom almost sees it as a competition
Yeah.
and doesn't have that same like, I'm so proud that my daughter can cook.
Yeah. And that makes me think about like there was a recent creator that I saw where she was like under fire. I can't remember who it was, but she is just so clearly jealous of her daughter. And I don't remember if I mentioned that in my episode or not, but like the jealousy factor is real. Like I just cannot believe sometimes that people will literally birth someone and then be like, this is my op, this is competition. That's sick.
Mhm.
It's a genuine sickness. It's gotta be.
Yeah. Yeah, Kath says it seems like she's envious of Sean's cooking. Yep.
Yeah. Like I don't understand how you can just envy your child. That's so weird.
Yeah. Like if anything, I feel like I would be proud that my children are growing into such self-reliant adults. Like that I feel like that's all you could hope for as a parent. And I feel
Right.
especially strongly now that I'm thinking about having kids and how I would raise kids. I do feel like if my kids started popping out dishes that tasted better than me, I wouldn't feel angry at them. Like I wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, it's overseasoned. Oh, it's overcooked, actually. You know what? You should let me do the cooking because I feel like our family likes my cooking better than your cooking," which is something that like Mayo Mom actually did say to Sean at one point. Like she was like,
When they
"I
had all of
think
the
you
family
guys
over,
prefer." Yeah, like it was she was saying, "I think you guys prefer my cooking over your cooking." So, you know, and
yeah.
and I was just watching that like, why would you say that to your own daughter? Like, first of all, not true if you look at the dad's reactions. Not true.
And
Um,
everyone else that she had over in the few videos that they've done where we've seen more of their family members, no one
mhm.
had anything bad to say.
Yep.
Like to give Chopped Level the show critiques to your kid when they're trying to discover their love for cooking is insane to me. You're not there to be a judge. You're not there to be Gordon Ramsay. You're there to be their cheerleader. None
Mhm.
of the advice that she's giving is actually helpful in any way, shape, or form.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like Kath says, it's a gift for parents when their kids start being self-reliant. Like I said, it's all you could hope for, truly.
Because that's supposed in a normal world. And if you're a normal parent, I would assume that that's supposed to be your number one goal. Because a lot of
Mhm.
some people sometimes forget the plot, the original plot of the story, which is you're not having kids to just have a baby. You're having a kid to raise an adult that's going to be a functioning member of society who has to
Yeah.
have their own skills to process, problem solve, take care of themselves, and eventually take care of others. So to limit them in any way, shape, or form from growing and being able to do that is insane.
Yeah.
Sheltering them in any way that's going to hinder their ability to get better, crazy work.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I was talking about in my episode where like I was saying, I think this is, and I think you said this earlier too, where it's a matter of Mayo Mom is thinking the kitchen is my realm. Like, it's no longer the kitchen is where everyone goes to eat. It's a thing of, this is my area. I rule over the kitchen. This is what I get to do. And so when someone who is more passionate about cooking than she is comes into the kitchen, she suddenly gets very defensive. And it's like she's defending her castle. You know, she's putting up the arrows, the swords, she's calling all of her soldiers and trying to kick Sean out and trying to demotivate her from entering the kitchen and from taking over the kitchen ultimately.
Yeah, or and technically, if you think about it, a castle is supposed to be for the people.
Mhm.
You know, if you're looking at it that way, it's supposed to serve the people. So it's not supposed to be this closed off thing. You would think that the castle would be open. Oh, we welcome one, come all, come as you are.
Yeah.
Let's do this together. But no, that's not the case. Like you said, her castle shut down. Guards are at the front with knives and swords, and we're not friendly.
Yeah.
It's like, hello? Like, oh, let her in. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And I said it in my episode too, but I feel like I got the impression that Mayo Mom was kind of forced to learn how to be a housewife, and she was forced to learn how to cook, how to clean, how to, be a perfect housewife. Whereas Sean was not forced to do anything. She just went into the kitchen and was like, you know what, I really like cooking. And I think that's one of the triggers of Mayo Mom is that she's seeing like my daughter has free will. That's not fair. Instead of saying like, "Oh, my daughter has free will. This is so wonderful. We're seeing progress in real time. Like I never got a choice, I was forced to become a housewife or that's all that I was told that I could amount to was to be a housewife. And now my daughter has free will and she can be whatever she wants to be." It's more of like, "Wait a second,
Resentment.
that's not fair." Yeah.
Yeah. That having that resentment towards your kids for them having a life that you didn't get to have is strange. Like you should that's always supposed to be the goal is for
Mhm.
them to do more, see more, be bigger than you ever could have been. So for you to dim that light in that way and like you said, have resentment, that's not a good thing. That's not healthy. And I wish that, her dad would be a little bit more vocal in that
Yeah.
aspect. I think that's
Yeah.
something that I wish I would have touched on more in my episode.
Me
Um,
too. Yeah.
yeah, because it's like, okay, the dad can have a big play in how this goes, but then again, I know he's probably like, I don't want to be with my wife at the same time, but at moments like that, I think it would be more beneficial to choose your child first,
Mhm.
because then
Yeah.
that's who
I
becomes the new number one when you decide to have a child with your
yeah.
partner.
Yeah, I recently got a comment that made me think about that, and the comment was asking like, why does the dad even stay? Like, this woman doesn't seem like she's a pleasant woman to be around. Why does the dad stay? Like, why isn't he speaking up? And it got me thinking, yeah, like I if I had a parent dynamic like Mayo Mom and the dad, I would want my dad to speak up more. I would want my dad to not just praise my cooking, but also tell my mom like, "Hey, you know what? This is out of line. Like your child, we're not in a competition right now. This isn't a Gordon Ramsay show. Like she's not going to get eliminated from anything. She's just making food for us to eat. Like there's no reason for you to be so mean about it."
Yeah, there's no reason for her to do the most. Like you said, that's such a good point. This is not a show. There's no elimination. This is just
Yeah.
us living life because at the end of the day, you have to eat. So
Yeah.
regardless of who makes it, why is it a big freaking deal? Well, because she's threatened, like we said. But yeah, that is a good thing, like a good point. I really wish the dad could have just verbatim been on, video saying that. Like maybe he does, we're only going
Yeah.
off of what we've seen and what Sean allows us to see. But yeah, I guess the bare minimum he can do is give positive comments, but I would like to see a little bit more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why people are thinking like maybe this is a skit because the dad isn't saying as much as he should, right? But I do think there are dynamics like this, and I don't think it's a skit. I think if anything, things are edited out to make it a teensy bit more exaggerated or a teensy bit more like palatable to social media and the algorithm. But I think for the most part, everything is real. Also, I just want to, because Kath is asking if I have super stickers. I don't. I don't qualify for super stickers yet. I'm sorry.
Me either. Struggle's real.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I did, but no.
Yeah. But no, I
Um,
totally agree with you with what you just said. Like, come on. We need it's not gonna hurt to stand up and speak up a little bit more.
yeah. Especially if he's noticing like just how sad Sean is. Like if Sean is especially like, "Oh, today was really hard because my mom like told me that my food sucked." You know, my mom was extra harsh on my food today. I feel like it would only be appropriate for the dad to be like, "Karen, you know what? Like, why don't you stop? Like, she's obviously just trying to learn how to cook. You know, she has a ton of followers on TikTok. Like, let's just let her live." Like,
I know, especially with them like being aware of that they're being perceived. I would have
mhm,
assumed that that would have maybe made her change, but that's how you know that she's like really defensive about her space because she knows that so many people genuinely hate her guts and that genuinely do not like her, and she still stands on her word and her business and her ways. That is next level narcissism, is what
mhm,
I was like, girl, even then, you know that millions of people see you say these things and don't like that you say them, and you still do it. And then,
yeah,
like, even the dad acknowledges, like, yeah, you know, everyone hates you. I've like seen him joke about it a couple times, and she's still
yeah,
just like, mm, like that's concerning to me too.
yeah. That's I mentioned that in my episode too. I was like, how is she seeing like so many comments? And then I thought about it like how my grandma acts. Whenever my grandma gets criticism, it goes in one ear and out the other. Like, and it's because they're putting up this shield that they're like, anyone who hurts me only means to hurt me. So anyone who hurts their ego goes out the window, like bounces back off the shield because it's like, oh, your opinion's not important. You're just trying to hurt me. I don't care about your opinion. And
Yeah,
so they never, like, that criticism never gets to them and they never are able to see the hurt.
right. See, yeah, that's like really frustrating because I even mentioned like in my no contact episode, I wrote my grandma like a whole 4-page letter explaining here's what you did that made, you know, hurt my feelings, this, that, and the other, laid it out plain and simple. And to get no response, it just feels like it exactly just did what you just said. It was like,
Hmm.
boom, bounced off. Moving on with my
Yeah.
life anyway. She's just trying to hurt me. I don't want to actually take in anything she's actually saying and use
Yeah.
critical thinking. It's like, oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah. Um, Kath says this the dad needs to stay on mom's good side. And then she's asking if she can send us cards.
Aw,
Thank
yes. But no, I that was my point that I made too.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not trying to rock the boat too much
Hmm.
because then she'll like it's just so obvious that's how she's gonna act. She's not gonna like him taking Sean's side, which is so
Yeah.
strange.
It's like he'd rather watch his daughter get hurt than divorce the mom.
Yeah. And
Like,
I
to
think
me, if my partner was acting this way to our child, divorce immediately. What are you doing?
mhm.
Why are you hurting my child's self-esteem? Like, you're supposed to love this person. We created her together. You know, we're trying to fuel the passions. Why are you putting our daughter down? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And to me, it feels like he's comfortable living. how he is. And part of me wonders if he's maybe not around to witness a majority, because Sean in one of the TikToks she posted said like this has been my whole life, like outside of cooking, outside of TikTok, she has always been critical of everything I do. So part of me wonders like if maybe the dad, if like Karen is a stay-at-home mom and the dad is the one working, part of me wonders just how much the dad has witnessed, and if maybe that is a reason why he hasn't divorced Karen, like because he wasn't around to witness the majority of like the abuse and the majority of the criticisms.
Yeah, because then there are a lot of parents that'll pull that card where they're like, "Well, I didn't see that." And it's like,
Hmm.
well, technically it was your job to see it. So
Yeah.
then that kind of like, I don't really like excuses like that either, because you should be paying attention. But I think one thing I've considered too is like, what if he doesn't like take it as seriously because Sean appears to not take it as seriously? Because
Hmm.
one thing I've noticed that she does, I would assume, which is for like protection reasons, is to kind
Yeah.
of make it all a joke.
Yeah.
Oh, POV, your mom hates everything you cook, LOL. And it's like, really, there's
Yeah.
no LOL, Sean. This isn't
Yeah.
funny. None of this is actually comical in any way, shape, or form. But to protect herself, she seems to just be like, well, I'm just gonna lean into the bit and make it funny. When in reality, she could, like we said earlier, actually be hurting inside. So then if she's always being like recording the videos and her dad are laughing, then her dad might think, oh, well, she thinks she's cool. It doesn't hurt her. It doesn't affect her. She's fine. But it's like,
Yep.
no, babe, like that's a coping mechanism. And that's like one thing that I do get a little bit concerned about with Sean, because it's like, if you are actually affected and these videos are real and they're not rage bait, you putting up this defense, making your mom think that it doesn't hurt you is like not gonna help. Like, it's time to get real, clock in, set those boundaries, and be like, no, LOL, mom, this hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, at a certain point of you brushing everything off as a joke and like, oh, haha, you hurt me, but I'm gonna laugh. At a certain point, you get burnt out, and at a certain point, it is going to affect you, and at a certain point, the bottle's gonna break. Like it's gonna be the straw that broke the camel's back, and you will have a breakdown, and then suddenly you're being met with, oh. Calm down. I was just joking. Like I don't actually hate your food, and it'll just be even
But
worse.
it's
Like
like, do I know
you
that?
you do have to speak up.
Yeah, I hate when they do when people like that are narcissistic in that way do that. Well, I don't. But it's like, no,
Yeah.
sweetie, you haven't given me any indication that you don't actually hate this.
Mhm. Yep.
That's the part I hate when they like say stuff like that. Like, well, come on, like you know me. Like, no, you have to actually, give reassurance to those
Yeah.
that you love. Like,
Yep.
because then the more and more you say these things, the more that they're gonna really think that it's real. And that's one thing that I've like had to understand in with my healing journey. It's like, no, like you need to. It's nice to speak up more and tell people that you love them. Tell the people that you appreciate them, and just speak about the good. Because then if you don't, and then you pull a well, you know how I feel. It's like, well, I don't hear
Yeah.
it. And when you're a mom, your kid needs to hear those things. It goes a long
Yeah.
way.
That's something that my dad is really guilty of. He'll be like, "Well, I love you. I just don't know how to say it. I just don't know how to show it." And it's like, "Well, you have to learn, because otherwise, do I actually know if you love me? Like, because you're saying it, but you're not showing it."
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely one thing that I've been trying to get better at. Showing it, being consistent, showing up, and not just letting your words be words, but your actions. And also, verbally being like, love you, instead of being like, well, I do.
Yeah.
Every quarter.
Yeah. Kath says about Sean's dad, he needs to get laid. That's why he doesn't speak up. And then if he does speak up, she's going to give him the cold shoulder if he speaks up for Sean,
Oh,
which is true.
yes. Yes. That checks out.
Yeah. And yes, Kath, if you send us cards, I can send one to Kristen too. 'Cause
Yes.
she asked. Yeah, yes, I can send it along. So I have a final question for you. Since, we both dealt with people similar to Mayo Mom, is there any advice that you would give someone who's going through something similar to what Sean's going through?
I think my number one advice was just to, like we kind of discussed in the beginning, do the healing work on yourself and realize that you can try to make a few attempts to reason with people like that, but more than likely, they're not going to want to change. And it's usually going to keep going in one ear out of the other. So at some point, you have to look at yourself and be like, how much more do I want to put myself through this? And choose yourself, And if you're going to continue to be involved with people like that in your life and not go no contact, um then you just have to, like I said in the beginning, focus on how can I control my reactions, because inevitably they're gonna say things that are gonna upset you. If you're gonna continue to have them around, they're gonna trigger you, they're gonna make you annoyed. So how can you work on you and having your routine of building up, your mental safety net of being prepared before you interact with them, and how do you prioritize your mental health after you interact with them is one thing I've had to learn in therapy. Like it, because it's exhausting being around people like that if you're gonna not go no contact. So prioritizing your peace, having a routine that's gonna help you feel safe and comfortable before and after the react interactions, I would say is something you need to prioritize. And if that's like you've had your limit, don't feel bad about kicking those people to the curb in your life, no matter what position of family they are to you, because you have to put you first. That would be my
Hmm.
advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say something similar. One of my favorite streamers, her name is Erica Bozeman, and her channel name is Bose versus the World. She talks about dealing with narcissistic people like this, and she says the best thing you can do is just not give them a reaction, because the thing that they're looking for is the reaction, because the reaction is something that they can build off of. So the best thing you can do is just not react and be like, okay, that's your opinion, but we're moving on.
Right. Good advice. Solid
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah. Um, and then a follow-up question. What are some, because I was thinking about this as we were talking about our family members, but what similarities did you notice between your grandma and Mayo Mom that made you think, wait, I recognize this behavior?
Just the criticism of it all. That's just the number one thing. It's like both her and my mom, it's like it's literally like they're fighting themselves to not say something. It's like that is so strange to me. Like if you have to fight to not give a like judgy comment, that's insane. So that's
Hmm.
like the number one thing I noticed. Like what their similarities is. It's like the judginess of it all. Oh man. Like you would think my grandma would just be like a professional judge.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think the judgy behavior is what reminded me of my grandma. And then the defensiveness about her position within the family is what reminded me of my mom. Because my mom does have trouble letting go of this idea that she's more than just a mom. She's her own person. She's more than just a wife. She's more than just a mom. And I feel like as we've gotten older and we've relied on her less, she's kind of lost that identity more. And I think that happens a lot with moms who become stay-at-home moms. They make being a mom their full personality, and that's ultimately what leads to them not teaching their kids to be self-sufficient. because the less self-sufficient the kids are, the more they have to rely on the mom. And that's how you get people like boy moms who
I was just
when their
about to say
kids
that.
are yeah.
That's boy mom coded down.
Yeah. That's how you know like once you see a man at his wedding and you can't tell who's the bride and who's the mom, those are the kinds of people that made being a mom their whole personality.
Yes, and there needs to be a psychological study done on those moms as well because oh my god, I've been seeing so many TikToks of like moms who genuinely just hate their sons' girlfriends, and it's like, why do you have this much hatred in your heart? Like, did you not realize that he was supposed to grow up and eventually be a man of the house? Question mark.
Right?
Like, do you
Yeah.
not want him to be a provider and take care of his future home? Like, what's the issue? Like, he's gonna be able to do both. Like, of course, as a child, when you grow up, you have to take care of your house, and then eventually, when your parents get old, then you naturally take care of them. So, why would you think that he would just completely forget you just because he's got a girlfriend now? Like, what?
Right?
Ugh, they
Yeah.
make me sick.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like so scared of having like a son. I just want all daughters because first of all, I don't want to be responsible for like ever potentially bringing a menace to society. Because at the end of the day, you can't control your children. So I have such a fear that it's like, what if my son ends up like out of my control, just being totally deranged, and then I feel responsible for that?
That's one of my fears too, and
Yeah,
especially knowing like the incel community, a lot of the times, a lot of the incels on incel spaces, they get there on their own. Like it doesn't matter if they have a good relationship with their mom, their sisters, their aunts, whoever, they get on that website and suddenly like
it's brainwashing.
switch.
They can be
Yeah.
brainwashed,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, that scares me because it's like genetically, you're a man. You're just a man. And something
Yeah.
about that feels very scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
just
I
keep
don't want to be a
thinking
boy mom.
Yeah, it really is scary. Like, I keep thinking, like, if I had a boy, how would I raise him so that he could stay away, like, to guarantee that he stayed away from incel communities and guarantee that he became a good person that wasn't a menace to society? Because it literally, like, I can put as many parental controls on the home computer as I want. Maybe one of his friends at school shows him the website and suddenly he's 10 feet down in this incel rabbit hole and he becomes a hateful person. Like I don't want that. So if I do have a boy, what is going to be my approach to raising him? And it is very scary. It really really is.
No, it's actually the most terrifying thing in the world. I can't think of anything that would scare me more.
Yeah.
Like, number one fear. For real. Like me and my sister always talk about that. It's like, oh my God. It's like you want him to be cool. You don't want him to be too nerdy. But at the same time, it's like you don't want him to be problematic. It just seems like it's just too much work. Like I'd rather just have a child and then they grow up to be a baddie and be unproblematic like me. And we can just go to the nail salon and like even if they're not even like femme,
Yeah.
regardless, you know that they're not a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if my girl is not femme, I still wouldn't be concerned that she would be an incel.
Right. Yeah. And it just makes me think like if I have a son and I raise him to be super nice, what's going to happen when he gets bullied at school? Because a lot of the times, being bullied at school really changes you and
Yeah.
makes you become such a different person. And it's like, well, I can't control that. I can't be at his school like 24/7 watching him, making sure that the other kids don't bully him. Like, stay away from my son, stay, because then that's going to be even more isolating and that's going to lead him down a worse road. And it's just something that I've been thinking about as of recent.
Yeah, because my boyfriend is like convinced that I would be that type of mom. And I'm like, I'm not even going to be offended that you think that because I will be like, listen, little kid, about mine. Like, for real. I think it was just
Yeah.
because we have one Dave and Buster's incident, and now he thinks I'm just going to like check every child that ever has that I ever have an issue with, or that's ever going to have an issue with my unborn. Because we went to David Buster's a couple of years ago, and this little brat took my bucket of tickets. This is before they had them just all on your card. So I was stacked up. This little demon gremlin of a boy snatched my bucket. I see out the corner of my eye. I run around. I walk over to a little boy. I grab him by the arm, not like too violently, just, grabbed him
Mhm.
casually. And I'm like, "Did you take my tickets?" And my boyfriend was so upset. He was like, "Babe, you cannot do that." Like, do you want to go to jail? Do you want me to go to jail behind you? Because now I'm fighting the kid's dad. Like, do not confront little children like that. So it's like, I feel like I fear that I will be that type of mom because that was just me going crazy over my tickets. What will I do if it's my kid?
Mm.
So
Yep.
that worries me.
Yeah. This is another concern, like another fear. Kath says we have very few guns in Canada, so it's less scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was worried to have a boy because I don't allow toy guns. Thank God I had a girl. Yeah. It's just scary having to raise. I know there's so many good moms out there that have boys and that are able to raise their boys to be so conscious about consent, about privilege, about, worrying about others, having empathy, which is a really big thing. Um, but it is a fear.
Yeah.
But anyway, to wrap this up, do you have any other thoughts that you want to share about Mayo Mom or about Sean or anything in your experiences?
No, I think we did a good job of just kind of like going unscripted and just further diving into our thoughts and opinions about it all. And at the end of the day, if you're a jealous mom, get help.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. Did you see, sorry, just bringing up another thing. Did you see the TikTok where Mayo Mom brought her son over, like their son visited, and Mayo Mom was like, "My favorite child."
No, I didn't see that. Oh my
I saw it,
god.
and it was like Mayo Mom was trying to joke about it, but like people say, there's a kernel of truth to every joke. And I saw that, and it's like you said, Sean immediately was like, "Oh, ha ha ha," like laughing. Everyone was laughing, but it's like, I don't know how I would feel if my mom looked at my brother and was like, "This is my favorite child." Like,
It's not funny. It's not
yeah,
funny. When it comes from her, it's not funny. But my dad
yeah.
does something similar and he'll like have a point system for me and my sister. And like anytime we do something that he doesn't like, he'll be like, -10 points. I'm like, skip your points. Like stuff like that is like fun and silly, but
Yeah,
it's just coming from me and mom, it's a chop.
yeah. It's different when you know that they don't mean it versus when you know they mean it.
Right. Oh my god, I'm glad I didn't see that. That would have really upset
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I had a lot of fun. It was so
Me
fun talking to
too.
you and getting to know more about your experience and how you've lived through this and just getting to talk to you. It was really fun getting to talk to you.
Yes, I knew this would be like such a fun conversation just because like I tune into your podcast and we have like a lot of similar thoughts on a lot of things, like especially like overconsumption. That was such a good episode. And I love how much you
Thank
like
you.
you're welcome. You dive into like your topics. I'm like, my girl, if I'm sitting down and I'm getting ready to clock in and listen to Lily, she's going to have research, data, receipts, timeline. Like, I just love that. So I really enjoy your content. So I was like really looking forward to this chat. I feel like we could talk
Thank
for so
you.
much longer, but
Right? Yeah. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really enjoy your podcast too. I like I said, I saw your TikTok first and then forgot to save it and forgot to like it. So I had no idea what your podcast was called. And then one day I was looking through my YouTube analytics and it was saying like, "Oh, your video is recommended on this other video." So I look up that video and it's your video and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I finally found it." And yeah, really, it was such a like source of inspiration for me. And cuz I knew I wanted to do a podcast kind of surrounding psychology, but I had no idea where I wanted to start until I came across that TikTok. So yeah, it was really fun, and I watched your episode, and I was like, "Damn," like, point by point, like, it was almost like bar for bar, we said very similar things, and so, yeah, I felt the same way. I knew this was gonna be a great conversation, so thank you so much for being here.
Yes, no problem. And if you ever want to have me again, just reach out because
I
I'm
will.
like all of the topics you choose. I'm like we're locked in.
Yeah. I will email you and ask you to be here again because I really enjoyed talking to you. Um, Last thing, if anyone has any questions before we leave, we can answer them right now. Um, and then, oh, also, where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok for as long as TikTok is around. Oh my God, please don't take CapCut from me. Please.
Right, that's where I edit.
Same. I was sick for 2 days when they didn't bring CapCut back. I was like, girl. But yeah, Instagram, TikTok at a little bit of lot podcast, YouTube at a little bit of lot podcast, and you can find me on Spotify and Apple as well. And I always plug my coloring account because I'm a multi-hobby girly. I do adult coloring at Coloring with Kristen on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So you can check me out. I have like multiple different like revenues of content. If you want to listen to a show, think pieces, or if you want to get cozy and have some ASMR, I got you covered.
Yeah, I've been checking out your coloring channel and I really, really
Thank
enjoy it.
you.
It's really fun. So, highly recommend for all of you guys to check Kristen out. I really enjoyed this. And again, thank you so much for being here and talking with me. Um, it looks like we don't have any questions at the moment. So, I think I'm gonna close this out, but if anybody has any questions and you're watching this like a replay, you can leave your questions in the comments, and I'm sure I will, be there answering. Hopefully, they don't remove the comments because my last two live streams, the comments were removed. That was really sad, but
Oh,
hopefully
I
they
wonder
don't remove the
why.
comments this time around. But yeah,
Fingers crossed.
yeah. Anyway, I'll see you later. I'll talk to you later.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.